I'll go through them A to D. Have we still got Denise with us? I can't see her.
She's there, but she's got her camera on.
Okay. So we received the report from this morning and the recommendations and acknowledge the work undertaken by Rosie Salas and Ian Littleworth. B, we note there is an interest in how we could remunerate this position, and Mana Whenua iwi ati awa ki whakarongotai, Ngāti tō rangatira ngā hapu otaki will discuss potential options working alongside council staff. C, we received the recommendations within the report, including suggested nomination of Vaiani Parada and support further consultation between Tatiawa ki Whakarongotai, Ngāti tō rangatira and ngā hapu otaki for this appointment. And D, a confirmed nomination will be provided by Mana Whenua to council staff by the 10th of March 2023 to enable the appointment to be made by council at their meeting on the 23rd of March 2023. The nomination will be retrospectively confirmed at the Whakaminenga or Kāpiti meeting scheduled on 28th March 2023. Is there any further discussion before I put that motion? And thank you, staff, for your assistance. Rosie?
Can I just check the date of the meeting then? The council meeting was the 26th of March? This is the Whakaminenga.
I think it's 23rd.
The council will sit on the 23rd. I'm satisfied, speaking for our Mana Whenua representatives, if we've done our due diligence on this, I'm satisfied that we can provide a response in time for council's meeting on the 23rd, and we would then retrospectively affirm that decision at our next scheduled meeting of Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti on the 28th. I'll put the motion. It's been moved and seconded. All in favour say aye. Kia ora mai tātou.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can I just ask a quick question on clarity? Could I just confirm with council staff whether the meeting schedule's been confirmed for the coming year? Is it a 6-week cycle as such? Cool. Could I perhaps ask that to be sent out via a calendar invite as such, so we can diarise it? Would be much appreciated.
Perhaps could I just ask, in addition to that, could the minutes of this meeting reflect that? Could we actually include the meeting dates for Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti for 2023 at least? Attach that to these minutes, please. Thank you. Okay, a koutou te wā, te kotahitanga. This is where I invite any of our Mana Whenua representatives across the Confederation to provide any updates. I'm assuming that as we progress our engagement, I could see ourselves providing written updates and reports on various items of interest and significance to us all. So, kai a koutou te wā. I'll open the meeting up to you to report on any matters that are of importance to us today.
Tēnā tātou. Can give a brief update. You'll all be aware that Pika Pika to Otaki Expressway is open. Woohoo! It's fabulous. And the gateways are about to be open later this week. You might have seen them on either side of the expressway in Otaki.
Awesome at night.
And then we're moving on to, work has already started on the next stage, the Otaki to Levin. It's in the planning work, so it's going well. The other sort of big areas for us, one is housing, as you know. We've recently been given formal notification of the Better Off funding coming through for that, and so we expect to bring others into the team and ramp that work up considerably this year. Excited about that. Another area of importance at the moment is the district plan PC2 changes hearings coming up in March. They're scheduled for the 20th to the 31st over a 2-week period. And we've been talking with Jason about having 2 days of that hearing in Otaki. We're currently looking at doing that at Raukawa Marae, and the plan is to have that so all of the submitters who wish to speak either from the Otaki area or if they're submitted about the Otaki area would be invited to present on those 2 days along with us, and we'd extend that out to our Te Atiawa and Ngāti Toa if they wish to come and speak to their submissions during that time. So yeah, we're right in the throes of the planning for that. It's looking good at the moment, and we're excited about that. Always got some reservations about, how much of an impact that's going to have. Know that that's going to be, the panel's going to make some recommendations to this council, and then it's going to come back to this council to consider. So that's a big deal for us. And it's quite timely with what's going on with the weather and what's hitting some of our other communities around the country, thinking about how those changes that are being made without the necessary infrastructure being sorted out before the plan changes, how that could possibly impact us. So, yeah, March, we'll let you know. We'll probably have to do that by email, given our next meeting is the 28th of March. Those are the main things from us. Denise might have some other things to add. That's it from me. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Kirsten. I think Kirsten covered most of it. Housing is still an urgency for our people. How other housing developments are planning to roll out is another one in terms of engineering activities and the engineering proposals and the how they plan to undertake some of their developments are causing some concerns in terms of whereas as interested as the structure below the ground as much as we are about the structures above the ground. So how new building developments affect our waterways going into the future is a very serious and a really major kōpā for us to be following in terms of our small space in Otaki. I think the other one too is we'll probably share with you too that we are doing quite a bit of work with GWRC though on other matters in terms of climate change and the other work that's happening with Remo. So I know quite often we have some KCDC representatives at that forum, but they're keeping us alert, and it's been very helpful, we find, in sharing those with our people in Otaki and other business entities in Otaki. We're working very closely with our Otaki Community Board, so good to see you there, Shelley. So we have a regular scheduled monthly meeting now with our Otaki Community Board to be sharing kaupapa and work plans as we roll out for 2023. And I think that's about us. I think Kim's covered the other bits. So we're keen to be engaging. We haven't had a good opportunity to have a robust discussion, as Andre discussed earlier or mentioned earlier, with our arts colleagues, because everyone's very busy in their little area. but we are looking forward to that. So we look forward to that opportunity in the next week or so. Andre, just not next week during Matatini, please, because I'll be at Matatini.
Perhaps we could all go to Tamaki Makaurau together.
Haere mai koutou.
Thank you, Denise. Huriwai, kai a koe?
At my end, I'm somewhat more removed from the day-to-day activities of Ngāti Toa. So myself personally, just still coming to grips and sort of getting myself settled into this sort of into this particular role. But what I can report back on is that Paula Collins has replaced Naomi in terms of the sort of day-to-day function or the sort of key contact at Te Runanga o Ngāti Toa for KCDC matters. So it's who I'm sort of funneling everything towards. And for other Ngāti Toa representatives on various other councils in the Rohe, we are looking to sort of have our own sort of catch up. I think just to sort of ensure that there is close synergies and enough sort of like that the accountability links are there so that it's a lot more of a seamless process between the activities of what's happening in the iwi and then sort of our ability to work with councils and sort of connect the activities of councils with those priorities for the iwi. So yeah, not much to report on, but hopefully more in time. Oh, and I do see Councillor Handford there. So there was a particular matter that I'm not sure if she wanted to raise as herself as a general item or whether she wanted me to raise it. But if she doesn't raise it, then I'll raise it towards the end. Relating to Raumati, I feel good item.
Can I encourage you to raise that now, Huriwai, please?
So I'm assuming Councillor Handford will talk to more, but at a previous council meeting, Councillor Handford and I had a brief discussion about the work that she and, I do apologise, Councillor, I've forgotten his name, from the Raumati, the Community Board, relating to a piece of work that they are undertaking around engaging with the Raumati community to sort of see what does that long-term vision look like in terms of community well-being, community connectedness and that kind of thing. And in particular, what I think Councillor Handford was seeking from Te Whakaminenga and the art iwi is, I think, just testing around the levels of comfort, I guess, or participation that art iwi wanted to have inside of the process. It's a very sort of open process. It's very sort of in the early stages of the work that they're looking to undertake. They've done a preliminary survey from the Raumati community around, you know, what do they want to see specifically in their community, and what are the priorities. And I think they just, Councillor Handford just wanted to sort of make sure that the connections with the art iwi are there, and that the door is open if you wanted to participate in that process.
Kia ora. I think I can see that that's registered, so I'm happy to invite the councillor to provide a response to that, Huriwai.
Yeah, kia ora, Huriwai. I feel like that was covered off pretty well. Not too much to add to that. Pretty much could just be Huriwai's project. He nailed it. The description of the kaupapa and what we're aiming to achieve. So myself and Bede Larissy, the chair of the Raumati Community Board, kind of as members of the community, I guess, kick-started this process and are seeking to enable it to, in the longer term, kind of deliver a bit of a community vision for Raumati, but then also a blueprint that other communities could pick up and kind of create something for their own locality with. So at our briefing on the 16th, so on Thursday in the afternoon, there's a session around kind of our vision for Kāpiti out to 2050, and Bede and I will be presenting a little bit more about the mahi that we've been doing so far and how other communities might be keen to take that on or take learnings from it, or just any feedback or ways that people would want to be involved. So would really welcome kōrero kind of offline and organically when and where people are keen to be involved. But was just really keen to make sure that the door was open, and when and where you have capacity, if there's engagement that you want to have with the mahi, we'd love that. But there's obviously no, and it's also not like a strictly kind of council project. We're doing it in our role as kind of community leaders, and yeah, obviously see yourselves very much in that light as well. So where there's opportunities to partner and work together, that would be awesome.
Kia ora, thank you, Sophie. Councillor Halliday?
Two things through you, Mr Chair. One, just building slightly on what Councillor Hanford was just talking to. We have local outcome documents in our district. The reason I bring this up is I have mentioned it a few times at council meetings, but I think they're about due for renewal. Looking here at them, they range in date from 2007 through to 2012, and there's about a dozen of them throughout the district. I'm quite keen to see these refreshed, if you like, and in part the work that Councillor Hanford and Bede have done in this is almost a precursor to that unintentionally as such. So I just wanted to bring that to attention because I think it's very, very important that we have iwi Māori influence when that process does potentially start as well. The other, did you want to comment on that?
So just seeking direction, is it important then for this meeting to record and note that? And what involvement do you see Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti having in terms of the review of those?
No, I don't think there is any need to at this stage. It's not something that's been formally put in place as far as I'm aware. Just an awareness thing for this group to keep an eye out for potentially as to what involvement, hopefully full involvement, and I would think that would be the case, but that would be something to be sorting out at a later date if these reviews go ahead. I think Mayor Holbrook might want to comment on that as well.
Thank you for that. So, and thank you for the kaupapa in Raumati. It certainly is an exciting blueprint for some other communities maybe to be involved with as well. I'm just concerned about iwi capacity in terms of our wider council vision. So Councillor Hanford mentioned that we have a workshop coming up. I'm presuming that our iwi representatives have been invited to that. Our visioning work for council out to 2050, and that will be when we look at the outcomes and how they can be embedded into future visioning, and so there's quite a lot of work that's going to be going on in that space to inform the next long-term plan. It's not part of the long-term plan. It's going to sit separately as a strategic vision and will inform the next long-term plan. And so could I suggest that rather than having this conversation in iwi updates, which is meant to be particular iwi considerations, that we maybe have I'm sure we'll have an update from staff at some point about that wider council work program. Welcome responses to that, but just while I've got the microphone and it's in the Ngāti Toa space, I'd just like to extend a huge thanks to Ngāti Toa for the away day they held for local councillors at Takapuahia Marae at the end of last year. It was hugely appreciated, a very valuable day, and our thanks to the Runanga and to Ngāti Toa for putting that on. It was certainly extremely informative and valuable.
Through you, Mr Chair, my second question was actually to Hirawea. You mentioned that you're settling into your new role. I was wondering if you could just give us a bit of an overview of what that role is. I appreciate that you're now included in a lot of our committees as such. I'm just interested to how that your role that you've obviously been engaged with Ngāti Toa, how that all fits in there as such. That makes sense at all.
Oh, apologies for any confusion. No, the role, my role as the Ngāti Toa representative on KCDC is just the one that I'm just sort of getting to grips with, and I'm much more the structural sort of person. So I often like to understand organisations and councils either by looking at legislation or kind of like org charts or incoming briefings, just so I can kind of get the full view and then kind of funnel my way into specific issues. But yes, though, sorry if there was confusion around that one.
Hea koe te wā, Chris. Did you have anything to provide an update on from Titi Awaki Wakarongotai? I'll support you with that.
Yes, look, I would just like to say a bit of a shout out to the council and to the mayor and everyone that I've been turning up to a few of these committees and meetings, and I do appreciate how you have adjusted, well, not so much adjusted. I love the way how the meetings have been going, that everyone speaks freely and from their heart, and it's comfortable. It's really comfortable, and I just would like to say that. And I'm here to represent our iwi, and on behalf of our iwi, I will truly try and do my best, and I'm sure you will reciprocate and do that. And that's all I have to say at this moment. But now that I know what we're going to do at iwi updates, I might try and get a bit more information for you. But thank you so much how it's been going, and yeah, kia ora mai. Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Chris. Just a couple of matters to add to that for Te Awiki Whakarongotai. We are heading towards our Huia Tau, our annual general meeting on Sunday the 2nd of April. It's been publicly notified. There are positions available for a full trustee and what's called an alternate trustee. Both of the existing trustees will stand again, so nominations are open. The nomination forms and the accompanying documents are available through our tari, through our office, or through Election NZ. And so that's helpful to report to you. That determines who sits at this table in some respects. Also want to just add that we are still active in our application through the High Court regarding the proposed development out at Kārerewerewa. I think it was just over a week ago. We were contacted by our team. We were at court in Wellington to say there was machinery at Tāmati Place. We took photos and I took videos of some work that was being undertaken there. So it's an important matter for us, obviously, because of Kārerewerewa not just being a heritage site, but the Atiawa report that has now been released identifies our people's generational challenge to preserve it and to protect it. So just want to bring that to your attention. It's important that the council is briefed on that, given the support that we have received in terms of prohibiting and protecting that site and that area from being developed further. Heritage New Zealand are supporting that, and our application before the High Court has strong support from Rokawa and from Ngāti Toa. So just bring that back to your attention. It kind of aligns with the next item on the agenda, but I think those are the significant matters for the moment that we're attached to, and obviously active in so many other spaces at this present moment. Item 8, the final item on our agenda, is an opportunity for update, provide overview on where we are sitting currently in the treaty space. I'll probably defer to Ngā Hapu Ōtaki to start with. I know there's been some recent developments in terms of the vacation of the March and April hearing weeks. So I'll defer to Ngā Hapu to provide some commentary or update in that area.
Can give a little update about the hearings in the northern area. They were set to run just about monthly from March till June, July, and we've just had the March one deferred. So we've got, I think it's 4 or 5 weeks of hearings still to run in the Ngāti Raukawa area. And yeah, so quite a few of the hapu are pretty busy engaged with that work. That's all I had to add.
Kia ora, Kirsten. Andre, if I could sorry if I could just make a comment there. So there's been a fair bit of work on the Otaki claims, Andre, in our endeavours to get the dates deferred. So the loss of Te Wāre has been substantial to our Ngā Hapu Otaki claim work, including his own claims. So it's taken a while, one for his whānau to work through that, and then came up with, we left it with Ngāti Pare to make a nomination from their hapu to help pick up the work that Te Wāre had been supporting for our claim. So that's been done. But we managed to get a deferral, and we've got to postpone it now till late August this year, which gives us all time to regroup, I guess, and to complete some more of the research work that was required, that Te Wāre was pretty integral to. So we've done the best we can to find someone to fill that huge void, and the various hapu are now working together. So we've had a confirmation from Marama Fox that our hearing has been deferred, and at this stage there's resettling a date, hopefully for August. They haven't confirmed the date, but it will be August or later. Kia ora tātou.
Huriwai, anything to report in the treaty space?
Not for this particular meeting, but I will take an action point to make sure that I have some updates for upcoming and forward meetings.
Chris, anything to add? What I will share is that Te Awa ki Whakarongotai has a specific delegation, and that gives authority to a claims committee who have had oversight for all of those, I think, 17 identified Te Awa claimants. The publication of the Te Awa report provides the opportunity for us all to reflect on what was being determined, and in particular generating interest where the Crown has admitted that there has been a breach of the treaty. We continue to secure funding through Crown Forestry Rental Trust so that we can be active in the Rokawa phase of this inquiry. And as I just said previously, in particular, extremely active around the matter to do with proposed development, Tāmati Place, Kārewarewa. We're also active in the takutai mona space. So the Claims Committee, together with our coordinator, has been very active with Ngāti Toa and with Ngāti Rokawa regarding our individual takutai mona applications as the foreshore seabed stuff. So right now we have planned to meet again as a confederation to support one another in our individual applications, but also collectively as the confederation. So just wanting to report that back to this meeting as well. Other than that, we are aware of the new dates that have been signalled by Judge Fox, and we know that the latter part of 2023, I think I'm right in saying the last week of November and the week beginning of and into December is the very last hearing. I think hearings 14 and 15 have now been confirmed for the very late part of this year. And I do want to respectfully acknowledge our whanaunga Te Wāre and the claimants 1626 that have successfully requested the vacation of the March hearing, which is where the evidence was going to be presented, and a number of Rokawa applicants through their council supported the request for our whānau to be given more time to recover from his loss and to look at the approach of that evidence being presented later in the year. So very happy to report that Judge Fox, through the Waitangi Tribunal, has agreed to delay the evidence of those of those Mana Whenua witnesses until later in the year. I don't have anything else to report to the hui, but I think this is a helpful item to include on our agenda. And again, I'm anticipating that your Mana Whenua representatives will be able to provide written reports through this forum if that's what they feel comfortable to do. I think it's helpful for us to put our narrative on the paper so that there's no misinterpretation of what's being conveyed verbally. So I encourage our Mana Whenua representatives across the Confederation to give that further thought as we navigate this year through Te Whakaminenga o Kāpiti. Are there any questions? Any further comment regarding this item on the agenda? What I don't see on here is general business. Or have I got to turn the page? I have. All right, excuse me. My ignorance. Item 9, and there was 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 9.4 is where we will have some updates through our democratic services staff. So, kaya koutou te wā. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm here to talk to you about the Mana Whenua representation on the various council committees and subcommittees. I just wanted to confirm, I've got the remote. So this is the current Mana Whenua representation as it's been resolved by council. There are a couple on there that we wanted to just discuss with Te Whakaminenga o Kāpiti and get a steer from Mana Whenua on the next steps and how you see this progressing. So if I talk you through it, we currently have representatives. This is what was an arrangement that was agreed by council on the 24th of November 2022. And there was one Mana Whenua representative per Mana Whenua iwi at council with speaking but not voting rights. And for all other committees and subcommittees, there were, for most of them, one Mana Whenua iwi to be appointed with speaking and voting rights. And the only two exceptions were the Risk and Assurance Committee and the Grants Allocations Committee, the Community Grants Program specifically, where it was one representative for all iwi. So what has happened so far, this is the arrangement that has been confirmed by council this far. It was the 8th of December, confirmation by council was that Ngāti Toa would send Huriwai Pāki as a representative to all council, strategy, operations and finance, social sustainability and climate and environment meetings. And also on the same day, confirmation was reached that Kim Tahiwi would attend strategy, operations and finance meeting for Nahapu o Otaki. And then in January, council confirmed that for Te Aotearoa ki Whakarongotai, Andre Baker, Chris Gerritsen and Janine Huxford would be the representatives for council, strategy, operations and finance, and the two subcommittees, social sustainability and climate and environment. So as you can see on the matrix, currently there are still some open appointments yet to be made by council. And that can be made at any council meeting. So the next one is 23rd of February. So if any names are brought forward, anyone's nominated, we can get that confirmed. So for today, the considerations were specifically around the recruitment and the appointment of Mana Whenua representatives on the Risk and Assurance Committee and the Grants Allocations Committee. For risk and assurance, there are, and I can jump ahead. Am I doing that right? Yeah. So LGNZ, this is just for your consideration, but LGNZ does provide a little bit of guidance on suggested skills, expertise, and personal qualities. That doesn't mean they have to have all of them, but it's just something to be aware of so the right person can be put forward so they can have the most impact for Mana Whenua, because obviously the subject matter being discussed at those meetings can be slightly different to other meetings. So for those two committees, the Risk and Assurance Committee and Grants Allocations, there are two grants allocations programs that we're looking to get confirmation for. We wanted to first ask Mana Whenua whether you had a view on how best to progress this and how best to recruit for those roles, or whether we should suggest a couple of options that we can further discuss.
I'd invite conversation about this so we
Yep.
can get some clarity.
Yep.
I think that's what we're being asked to do,
Yep.
so
Yep.
please expand further on this conversation with us.
So for the audit and risk, if we start off there, there are options that we could consider. So for example, we could have a recruitment process where we advertise the position, either within Mana Whenua, wider, anything's possible, and then go through a recruitment process where the person would be interviewed with Mana Whenua sitting on the panel and having a discussion around appointing someone through that. Or it could also be one of your own TWOC representatives being put forward as a rep. This would kind of, the first process would mirror the independent member process that we currently use for risk and assurance, whereas the other option doesn't.
Kōrero mai. I think the direction I'm seeking is in relation to what Steffi has outlined. We could go through a recruitment process where we advertise. That doesn't necessarily suggest that it would be internally. We would go through a recruitment process to then appoint. So inviting a response from our Mana Whenua representatives that are here, and I'm comfortable if there's a view that you wish to have further dialogue about it, but I appreciate that there's some time sensitivity here. And can I just simply say from a Tatiawa perspective, I think the expectation was always that we would look to recruit and appoint from governance, that we have done our best to have elected representatives of our iwi sitting here at this point. That's from our perspective, alongside our elected representatives of the council who are here as a result of our constituents providing their vote and their support to them. So that's the approach we've taken, which is entirely consistent with our review. But ultimately, it's up to each individual entity of our iwi to consider what's best here. But I just want to emphasise that this is time sensitive, and I think that there's a need to get direction from today's meeting about our approach.
Tēnā tātou. We've discussed this a few times actually, and I guess I just sort of made an assumption, which was probably not a good idea, that we would the three iwi would talk amongst ourselves and suggest people, and then hopefully come to a consensus decision around who we would like to represent us. And the assumption bit there is that we all have someone, or we might support each other, that we would like to put forward. I hadn't even considered that we might advertise, so thank you for letting us know of that option. I personally would like to go with the three iwi talking about it. I'm sure there are very capable and appropriate people at Ngāti Toa and at Te Atiawa, and there's a couple that I have in mind from Raukawa, and I'm sure we can work it out who to put forward for that committee. I'm talking more about the risk and assurance. I hadn't given too much thought to the grants allocation one actually, but the person could probably do both. Yeah, that's where I was at. Happy to consider any other approaches if anyone else has suggestions.
I just have a couple of points in response. I'll work from the end back. In terms of the same person doing both, I would think that the grants program would require a slightly different skill set to the risk and assurance. It's more about kind of being a little bit familiar with community organisations. For creative communities, it would probably make more sense for it to be the same person as the public art panel, for instance, than because that's very much about knowledge of the arts and things like that. So what might be useful is if our DEM services kind of send through kind of a little bit more information around this in terms of attributes, how often they meet, remuneration, because these are remunerated positions, and then the iwi can take it from there. I'm thinking that a conversation would be more appropriate than external advertising, because of course what was not on that list and what's probably paramount is ability to represent the views of Mana Whenua. You know, that's the number one attribute really on the list, and we wouldn't be able to decide on that. So they're my kind of thoughts around it. I just had a question. Were there iwi reps on the other grants programs, or was it just those two? Like waste and heritage and...
In the current governance structure, it's only those two,
only those
where
two,
there
yeah.
are two Mana Whenua iwi.
Yeah, they're probably the most important ones to have. But that's something that we
It
could
can also
potentially
always
have a
be
little look at, because thinking particularly the heritage and environment grants, it might be appropriate to have. But let's worry about that a little bit later. We can always bring a separate report in, because we've got enough on our plate right now, I think.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any other?
One more question. Could the risk and assurance person, it would be no problem for them to be one of the iwi representatives that are already allocated to the other committees? It doesn't need to be somebody else.
I don't see why that would be an issue. It would be best if it was the same person, so there's a bit of continuity across all of the meetings, but...
No, I didn't mean a different person coming to different risk and assurance meetings. I mean, it would be good to have continuity, having the same person coming to each one, because a lot of the work flows on, and the agenda is, you get familiar with it, and you can work through it quite quickly if there's familiarity with all the work streams. But I was just more referring to the iwi rep on the other committees. It could be somebody from that pool that's on the risk and assurance as well.
Huriwai and Denise, could I invite your comment, please? Direction.
Kia ora. I'm happy to proceed on the basis of the kōrero that's to date. I agree. I think it shouldn't take too long, I think, for us three as iwi representative groups to just have a quick discussion around, because I think my preference is just more to have a chat and see in terms of the first option around, within ourselves, can we get consensus on who we might nominate to represent Te Whakaminenga on those committees? It doesn't have to be the same person. I agree with the mayor that I think in terms of the skill sets required, one being sort of much more around risk, governance, and then the other one being a bit more sort of creative. I had the same kind of idea around maybe potentially the person that we stick forward on the arts panel being the same person on that allocation committee. But if we are unable, then I think it wouldn't take too long for us to sort of switch and go to a recruitment think if necessary. But no, I think it's going to be, it shouldn't take us too long at all to have a quick discussion about who we might want to stick up. Just not too sure whether you want to have that offline or.
Kia ora mō tēnā. Thank you, Huriwai. Denise?
Tēnā koe, Andre. Tēnā koe, Huriwai. Mio whakaro. I agree with us just having a quick chat. I mean, just while, as soon as Andre posted this one up, Kirsten and I immediately exchanged an email, and she must have been reading my mind and I was reading hers, because we both come up with the same name pretty quickly. But we would need to talk about that and talk with the person that we think has the capacity. And that person doesn't currently sit at any other committee meeting at council, but is very familiar with the processes, and certainly has the capacity, no doubting the capacity in terms of risk and insurance, auditing, all of those things that public and local governments are responsible for. And she would have no trouble fitting in and giving good advice or making great contributions to any discussions on risk and insurance. So I'm happy us to have a discussion as Art, and I think you all know the person that we're going to recommend. So,
Kia ora,
good, Andre.
Kia ora mō tēnā. Chris? Oh, sorry, Denise?
Oh, just on the other for the grant allocation committees for those things, I think utilising the person that's already been suggested for the arts panel, I think is one thing. But I think the community grants, if I think of Shelley and the Otaki community grants that go through Otaki Community Board and others, I think it's really good to have people that, for art, we know that will have our three communities' needs at heart and can represent them well on that committee. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora mō tēnā. Chris?
I would just like to tautoko what has been said, because this is not a strong point for me, to be honest, and I'm more than willing to want to learn about what's involved. Kia ora.
If I'm right, then I think what I'm hearing is that there's a willingness for ngā hapu, Ngāti Tō, Tatiawa to get together and consider the recruitment process for Mana Whenua representatives on the Risk and Insurance and Grants Allocations Committee. So could we formalise that? Kirsten, are you happy to move that?
Sorry, I'm just wondering, if, for yourself, Kirsten, if you fellows are in a position to discuss, is it possible just to have that quick 5-10 minute chat quietly, just as ourselves now, and just whether or not we wanted to do it now or whether we wanted to set up a separate time?
I'd be keen if we could have a video chat in in a few days. We do need to check with the person that we'd like to suggest before suggesting them, and then if we could have a video chat later this week.
Yeah, no, that can do.
Does timing work?
I'm just happy with that.
Ka pai.
Awesome.
All right, then what I'm suggesting is that ngā hapu, ati awa ki whakarongotai, Ngāti Toa, as stated in 9.1, will further discuss the recruitment process for Mana Whenua representatives on the Risk and Insurance and Grants Allocation Committee. Have a seconder?
I didn't think that needed to come to this group for any sort of endorsement or anything. Is that correct?
O ka waiho mau, Huriwai.
That's okay. So Kirsten was just asking whether it had to come to this group for endorsement. No, it doesn't. It just has to come to council to be formally appointed. So you can offline make a nomination as a group, and then it will just be confirmed by council. Yes.
So are you comfortable, Kirsten, if I ask you to move the motion, and then I'm asking for a seconder? and I thought I heard a name that starts with H and ends in I. So I'm not sure if that's Auntie pushing some buttons on that television screen. And I'm asking for a seconder. And Chris will second that motion. So is there any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour say aye. Contrary? Carried. Kia ora mai tātou. Thank you for the helpful discussion and debate. 9.2, review of the Memorandum of Partnership. Who's? You know. Oh, Darren.
Kia ora tātou, through you, Chair. It's appropriate at the start of each triennium that we consider the review of the partnership. And the partnership outlines whether we do that within the first 6 months or at a time that's appropriate to the committee. And as I sit and reflect back on the presentation that we had this morning in public, and if I look back to the original signing in 1994, next year will be a 30-year anniversary for Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti, which is a real celebration and something that we will want to acknowledge, I'm sure, into 2024. So the point of today's discussion, and I come back to some earlier discussions on Andre that you've made in other committee, where this was a great moment in time for council and for local iwi, and with the formation of art. So what we need to consider now is the relevancy of and how significant we are as representatives of iwi, and how council supports iwi through Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti, and into art and individually as we start to look at settlement and post-settlement, and what that looks like for each of you and what that looks like for us here at council, and how we continue to grow and develop our partnership. And so today is the beginning of that discussion, which will allow us to start to formalise what a review process might look like, if that is the decision of this committee. So that's what we're proposing today.
I'm happy to invite conversation regarding what the Chief Executive has just outlined. The Memorandum of Partnership is the formal recognised partnership between the three iwi and this council, and we've talked respectfully this morning about the architects of that. Uncle Pihi's one of them. We saw a significant kaumātua identified in the photograph, who inherit the same responsibilities we now have to do our best to maintain that partnership with kāwanatanga. So I invite a response, some advice, but clearly want to indicate there is a need to review our Memorandum of Partnership as we commence our partnership for this new triennium together with our newly elected members.
Well, today is just about he kakano, really, planting the seed for this review that will be such a significant opportunity for us to look at what's gone before, look at what worked, but work out what's going to work for us now in this new environment where so much has changed. You know, particularly in terms of iwi going through different settlement processes, our shifts and changes in terms of how we recognise iwi capacity and reflect that in our governance arrangements, and all sorts of other considerations. So, yeah, I think it would be good for iwi to go away and just start talking about how this might progress over the next wee while. It would be good to do it, to have a refreshed partnership during this triennium, and a 30th anniversary sounds like a perfect opportunity to celebrate the past but look forward to the future. So yeah, just really a start today.
I invite further conversation around this matter. I think it's important for both our elected members of council and our Mana Whenua representatives and our staff to get a sense of what I guess our expectations are, what our visions might be for our partnership, our relationship in the year ahead and beyond.
Through you, Mr. Chair. These are my own personal views, but I think we are in a point in time with regards to all sorts of relationships between Māori and KCDC in this regard, and I'm quite excited. I think we have to be wary of trying to change just for the sake of change's sake. As such, I think in these documents there is some really good foundations for our relationships. We may have wandered from them a little bit, perhaps, but I think the kaupapa that is written in both these two documents here is still very alive, and we just need to perhaps realign ourselves with a lot of it and see what that looks like moving forward into the future. But that can only be achieved by good conversation, open conversation, and honest conversation from the heart. I think, as we move forward as a district. In my view, this 3 years, we achieved some good high-level stuff over the last 3 years, but our relationship with Māori, whatever capacities, is high on my list of priorities to see addressed over this triennium, because I think, as I said, we are at a point in time where a lot of things are aligning with regards to those conversations. As such. So I very much look forward to it, I very much encourage it, and I'll very much support it.
And through yourself, Mr. Chair, just supporting the kōrero from the Mayor and Councillor Halliday around, I think, this type of litmus test to just. And I do agree. I think it is important to sort of put into context around how, and I'm not actually sure whether this particular memorandum of partnership was the first of its kind or other kind of thing, but it would definitely be in the early sort of one of the early sort of tools, I guess, between local government and Mana Whenua groups around how to actually partner up together. I mean, certainly it predated the first treaty settlements between iwi and the Crown. So I think that's an important piece of context. And I do agree, I think it is important to not only be able to take a breath and sort of see how far we've come, as the Mayor said, but then also identify those priorities going forward. One of the ones that I think, just from my own personal view, I think one of the ones that I'd be sort of interested to see as part of the review is, I think, just more of a mechanics question around, what are the timeframes if you want to undertake this, just those kinds of details, just so I can kind of then start placing urgency around certain points and know when to engage. But I'm assuming that's a conversation that will happen later on. But as at this early initial point, yeah, certainly happy to progress with the review and keen to see how it plays out and how Ngāti Toa can support that conversation.
Tēnā koe huri wai. Kōrero mai, Denise.
Tēnā tātou. Thank you, Janet, for your comments, and Martin, Huriwai. Like most things, here we are, close to near enough to 200 years on from the signing of the Treaty of Waitangi, and we're still going through the partnership issues. So, you know, we're going to celebrate 30 years of Te Whakaminenga next year. So we would want to go into that 30 years, I think, feeling every one of us being able to put our hand on our heart and say, I have the utmost confidence in my partner and my fellow art colleagues, including and all staff at KCDC, that we will all do the best we possibly can as partners on this whenua. And I think it's always good to review things, and certainly not to undo them. That certainly wouldn't be the intention, but to review them to ensure that I guess we as Mana Whenua are bringing ourselves to the table with the same willingness that our kaumātua did almost 30 years, 29 years ago. So I think, Janet, that's probably something that, you know, I want to share for myself and our people at Ngā Hapu. We've got a new group of people coming through at Ngā Hapu and trying to put in place good succession planning. And our next generation won't be so familiar with it, but they may be about to be stepping into some of our shoes in the very near future. So we'd like to have the opportunity to sit with ourselves as Ngā Hapu and then with art to be able to do that. I think that's a healthy approach to take. Tēnā koe, Andre.
Kia ora mai. Chris?
I'd like to tautoko again what everyone has said, but what comes to mind for me is ngā kai o te rangatira, he kōrero, he kōrero, he kōrero. And I think the review would be great and well overdue. Kia ora.
Kia ora anō. Yeah, tautoko, everything that's been said. Yeah, long overdue. Would love to take some time, dedicated time, to do a review. And you know, we have quite different governance arrangements and roles in other committees here now, and we have the iwi partnerships team. Wow, that's changed quite a bit over the last few years. So for me, it's good to have those things, you know, consider those things alongside the review of this group, and yeah, how helpful this forum is to all of us, whether we're, you know, achieving the potential of the group or not, and so how we could do things better. For me, it's probably helpful to have a terms of reference for the review and, you know, a facilitator, a bit of the backstory, going over some of those key things again and working to some sort of key points. But yeah, really keen to have that discussion. Think it would be a good start to this, to the next few years for us. Don't know actually when it's good for that. March probably isn't. April or May maybe. April, May, June. Oh, and also, I just want to let you know, my apologies, I'm going to need to leave right on 12:30. So I may miss the end part of it. Hopefully Denise can stay for the end part of the meeting. Kia ora.
I think about this local authority, which is really still in its infancy, in my opinion. This district was established quite late compared to many other districts within Aotearoa. And so there's always been a sense of having a license to be an architect of our future. And that clearly is illustrated when we're talking to Mana Whenua. I've said this in the past, not afraid to take risks. We're happy to be innovative and creative people. That's part of our DNA. Talk about 1994 being an important year. I think the commentary that's been made is correct. The Memorandum of Partnership, the term Whakaminenga, was meant to reflect, in particular, Mana Whenua, Ngāti Toa, Tatiawa, Ngāti Raukawa. It was intended that Whakaminenga would reflect that 200-year relationship. And then the languaging today at times has mentioned the word Māori. Māori is important because that's our expression for indigenous cultures. It was very convenient for the colonisers to just simply call us Māori. When we signed that treaty on the wall up there, we weren't signing it as Māori. Clearly identified ourselves, particularly in terms of our hapu. So we have a collective responsibility to review the partnership that unites us as the architects of all matters that are to benefit the people of this district. And I'm comfortable to say that Tatiawa, Ngāti Raukawa, Ngā Hapu will rely on their journey so far to be innovative, creative, take what might be considered a step that's risky, understanding the liabilities. A year before 1994, when Uncle P had huge influence with our kaumātua to establish Te Whakaminenga and to formalise that through a Māori, for a Memorandum of Partnership, an Education Act was amended. And I think I'm right, in 91, our first two students of Te Wānanga o Raukawa, who really captured a 25-year plan, were studying Māori administration at the first modern-day Māori tertiary institution that didn't have any accreditation, didn't have any government funding. By the third year of that degree program, that university, that Te Wānanga, had accreditation. So I'm just so reflective of the architects that we whakapapa to, and it would seem inherently appropriate that we understand the responsibility we not only inherit through our whakapapa, but through the various talents and life skills and experience, qualifications that we have or others have who we rely upon to inform our decision making. So for me, the review of the Memorandum of Partnership is already happening for Tatiawa ki Whakarongotai, and it has been for some time, since 2019, in fact, when we wrote to the Mayor on the strength of an annual general meeting where our people told us to withdraw from Te Whakaminenga. But the decision was also taken to that actually not just say we're not happy or we're not comfortable, it's not working. Go away and work out what would provide an appropriate solution. Go away and work on how this partnership could be engineered to reflect now. And so I'm very proud of the fact that we've undertaken that with a great deal of consultation and advice, and today's reflective of that. So let's rely on our innovativeness and creativeness, prepared to take some risks, prepared to accept some liability along the way, and let's come back to the table with a new document that's reflective of our partnership now and into the future, and recognises the need for us to continually plan to have our next generation being prepared to be supportive and to be visible, whether it's in a governance space like this or where we have worked so hard to educate and recruit our own experts, our own consultants across the Confederation to provide their expertise to us. And so I think that's the only other matter that I wanted to include in our conversation on this is the synergy that needs to happen between operational and governance. And that means that our operational arms need to be aware and appraised of those matters that are coming before council, and our representatives need to have the ability to access that advice. And we have those resources available to us. The bigger conversation is how do we fund that? How do we resource that? But I'm just reflective and respectful of the conversation today. I do think there's a lot to be excited about, so I want to echo what Martin is saying. It should always be exciting. We don't always have to agree, but it's how we disagree is far more important in terms of the integrity that we establish to work through those issues. That's a mana enhancing approach. That's an expression of rangatiratanga. So that's my summary of the discussion. Are there any other further comments, advice, or direction? If not, then can we conclude that by consent or by consensus it's affirmed today that we're all in agreement that we will participate in the review of the Memorandum of Partnership. I don't know if we need to timeline that. Perhaps if we're telling ourselves we need to be providing an update or report back for our next scheduled meeting of Te Whakaminenga, that might be helpful. I'm really comfortable to seek your advice and direction in how we record this.
Thanks. Sorry, through you, Chair. We can take that advice away, and we can look to bring a report, which will outline what an agreeable timeline could look like for the review, which will allow us to start that process, noting consideration for terms of reference and appropriate facilitator and how we manage that.
Sorry, just to add to that as well, in developing that, we would be coming out to each of the iwi to discuss those timeframes and how that might look, to make sure that when something came up to the next Te Whakaminenga meeting, everybody was already kind of across and aware of how that might look. This is definitely something that council's never felt that we should be leading as such. We're here to kind of support the process and be part of, but definitely needs to be done together.
I think that's a good approach, but I do think that we do need some conversation before the report comes. I think we've said today that we're not on any kind of urgent time frame around this. We're more interested in getting it right. So I wonder if we just say that a report's coming back, if that's ready for the next meeting, that's great. I'm just aware that we've got quite a long list of things that our iwi partners have to do between now and the next meeting in terms of sorting out some of that other stuff. So maybe just be a little bit more open-ended about when that report's going to come. Could come a little bit later, but with some more fruitful and useful detail in it.
I think what the meeting today should also conclude is that there's been a clear indication that the art forum needs to be activated. So there'll be some internal conversations, I think, that will follow understandably today across the Confederation. That's going to be helpful. That might be convenient in terms of how do we approach our engagements through the art forum, and I know that was raised at the previous council meeting, so there is a need for that to be visible and for there to be clarity around that. It's not necessarily exclusive to Mana Whenua meeting. And I think the other matter that's in my mind is that I'm happy to be corrected, but ordinarily after the conclusion of the elections, we used to have a time frame of about 6 months, I think, within that 6 months period when we would try to confirm and sign off our Memorandum of Partnership. So I'm just mindful that's been a matter of course in the past, so it might be helpful if we were to give ourselves a time frame. But I certainly think there's an agreement that the Confederation are going to have a catch-up. And I think that needs to help determine how and where we engage individually with Council, both at governance, potentially at operational level. I know that from a Tatiawa perspective, there's real keenness to ensure there's a visible synergy between governance and operation. And it might well be that we actually are talking about at some time in the future, coming together with the Confederation and having a hui. So I think ngā hapu, ati awa ki whakarongotai Ngāti Toa are going to go and have further conversations. I think there's an opportunity to activate the Art Forum to help support that. I think there's an opportunity as well that I'm hearing where the individual Mana Whenua and our council can engage, and it might well be that it culminates in us coming together collectively to look at how we're looking to scope this new relationship with one another under te Whakaminenga o Kāpiti.
Our reports to them and in the payments we've created. So you can see in the payments, you think, wow, you know, if we had 100.
Tēnā koe Claire, uri moko pono o Ngāti Parerakawa.
Tēnā koe, Andre. Kia ora koutou. Kei te mihi tuatahi ki te atua nāna nei nā mea katoa I hanga. Ke a koe korodon mō tō karake me tō mihi I tēnei ata. Ki ngā rangatira o ngā iwi e toru, Ngāti Toa rangatira, te ati awa ki whakarongotai, Ngāti Raukawa, kei te mihi, kei te mihi, kei te mihi. Ki te kaunihira, me councillors, ki a koe Daryl, kei te mihi, mai oha ki a koutou. He uri ahau no Ngāti Raukawa, ko Ngāti Pari Raukawa te hapu, ko Ngā Tokowaru te marae, ko Claire Winiata rewe ahau. So we've come to talk to you today about age-friendly. I'm hoping that this whakatauki is one that you'll be well familiar with, Chris and Andre. We do need to just double check whether this is appropriate that we do use this in our strategy. When we first started the strategy work, we had Tania Parata leading with us on this work, and she thought it was quite an appropriate whakatauki, so we have got this in at the moment. It's a lovely whakatauki from Wee Parata. So I'll take this off later and have a discussion with you about this.
Claire, sorry to interrupt you. Huriwai has left us, as has Kirsten. So I'm just discussing this with Steffi. Effectively, what it does mean is that the recognised Ngāti Toa representative vacating the meeting means that effectively, in a technical way, we don't actually have Ngāti Toa representation. I'm just seeking advice because you actually have remaining here a very senior Ngāti Toa line. It might argue the senior line of Ngāti Toa sitting here. So I'm seeking some clarification. I've had a little whisper that the chair can use discretion if we should proceed without Huriwai being present, but recognising the whakapapa of those representatives appointed by Mana Whenua that are still actively involved in this hui. But I'm happy to have conversation with our elected members about how they feel regarding that, and would understand if there's a sense of discomfort or a feeling that this has perhaps compromised, I guess, what might be considered the appropriate council approach to having direct engagement with those who carry the authority of our individual rūranga or mandated iwi organisations.
Two points. Would presumably we could send this presentation to Huriwai so he knows what was discussed today and could provide feedback offline. Secondly, I believe we're trying to progress this age-friendly strategy. And thirdly, do we officially have a quorum with Denise online? Can the people online contribute to the quorum? So I think we'd need to recognise that this meeting no longer has a quorum. So probably it would be appropriate to close the meeting and make this an informal discussion. Would just like some advice on that.
Kia ora mai tātou. Just trying to clarify how we may proceed. What I'm understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Darren, Steffi, with in a normal situation with a council meeting, with Denise being online, it doesn't meet the requirement in terms of voting, the quorum. We also have a situation where Huriwai has had to be excused. And although, as I say, we have recognised Ngāti Toa status sitting here as Mana Whenua, it might be that we feel somewhat uncomfortable that Huriwai's, even online, is not actually able to engage. He's not able to participate. But there is a fine line here from a legal perspective, I understand, about us proceeding. And effectively we could proceed, but I'm seeking your response and your advice and your guidance, and then perhaps I'll respond and summarise where I think we're heading with this. So just respect us just having our kōrero, please, clear. Could I please hear from our remaining Mana Whenua representatives first? Denise, Chris.
Tēnā koe, Andre. I just concur with your summation of the position we're in now with the departure of Ngāti Toa from the meeting. And I'm just looking at what's remaining on the agenda, whether or not it can be, as you say, the meeting formally be closed here, and anything that continues is a discussion by those remaining. I'll be led by the council on that, and yourself, I guess, Andre. But I've probably only got about 14 minutes because at 1 o'clock I need to be going into another meeting. And then Ngāha Pū won't be at the table beyond 1 o'clock today, sorry.
Kia ora mo tēnā. Chris?
Held up.
Look, I think that, look, I would leave the decision in your hands, really. I really, because I myself have to be at my class at 2 o'clock. Yeah, so, I'll be leaving as well. Yeah. I would feel more comfortable if Toa were at the table, to be honest. Yeah.
Kua hau nei he tohu te rā. People are already redirecting their energy in other places. I'm satisfied that we're not able to satisfy ourselves that we have full representation across the iwi. It is unfortunate, but it is what it is. And so therefore I suggest that we accept the advice given from the Mayor, and full respect to those delegates that are unable to remain with us, those that have departed and those that have already signalled they have other commitments. Then I would conclude that we should close the hui, and we can receive this report. And for those members that have had to be excused, we can send that report on. And for us, Tatia Atiawa ki Whakarongotai, that includes Janine Huxford, who hasn't been able to make it today. So, yeah, that's what I would suggest we do.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just for clarity, I just wanted to check with the age-friendly strategy and action plan development update. Is this in any way, when is this coming to council for confirmation as such? Is this part of a process with regards to informing? So does that have to happen before the council vote to confirm this as such? Just get clarified.
Kia ora, Martin. Yeah, we're hoping to actually bring it to full council in April, but I'm more than happy if it's agreeable with everyone. I could come out to each of the different iwi and actually discuss it with them, if that's something that could be done.
I do note that our next meeting, I think it's on the 28th of March, which would be before that April meeting as well, that sort of stuff. So I just leave it up to the discretion with regards to that. I just wanted to get some clarity on that, that was all.
Any other points for clarification or comments?
Kia ora, Andre. It's not a clarification, but it's just a comment in response to Claire's comment there that Ngā Hapu Ōtaki would be more than happy to have an opportunity to sit with Claire and share what she was going to share with the Whakaminenga today, and be able to give a written response back to council.
Ka pai. Well, look, that would seem to be consistent with us needing to now provide a copy of the report to Ngāti Toa to consider and review. And similarly, I can say from Atiawa ki Whakarongotai perspective, we're happy to record that the report's received, but the actual review and consultation on the report we can certainly arrange directly through Claire, and we can then provide our response if that's a comfortable process to follow. Mindful that there are timeframes that we need to be aware of, and perhaps today's minutes again can reflect that for us, so we've got a reference point. If that's the consensus of the hui, then can I suggest that we approach it in that manner? Yeah. Whakaia na tātou? You agree with that? Kia ora. Thank you. Thank you to staff for your helpful advice and direction. We will close the meeting, but can we just note 9.4, there is a work program that needs to be scoped up. So can we just confirm in our minutes that that's work in progress? Correspondence, there's no correspondence for today's week. So our minutes will reflect that. And number 11 is just encouraging our Mana Whenua partners to help identify any future agenda items so that we don't get to the meeting and there's something we wanted to discuss but we haven't added it to our rarangitake.
Yeah.
So just encouraging us to go back to our own committees, our own boards, and amongst those Mana Whenua representatives, we're asking for you to forecast future agenda items that we can include so that we're well informed in advance of those matters that Mana Whenua in particular would like to highlight. So if you're comfortable with that, then I'll just ask for any other comments, any other advice from around the table, and then I'll ask that we close our hui. And thank you all respectfully for your time. Anything else from anyone? Denise, anything else?
Andre, ko pai.
Chris? A kai a koe te wā, a kai te pāpā, nau nei e tuku ngā mihi, ngā inoi hoki ki te atua, te kaihanga o ngā mea katoa, i te whakamutunga o tēnei tō tātou nei wāhanga.
Tēnei o tātou hui, anō reira ngā mihi nui. Ngā mihi nui kia tātou katoa, Darren, kia koe rā te kuia matua. Ka rewe ki he koro matua rā koe, he kuia matua rā kia mātau. Nō reira tēnā koe, Janet, kia tātou katoa ni. Ko tāku nei hea kia tai te hau ki te marae o whakarongotai. Nā te mea hoki kei te tai mai rā ngā te rahi o rātou i marunga pai hikara, te kaue mai te mate o Talia Morrison, ana ki toi ki te marae, 1 o'clock e ka tai tu rātou ki reira. Ai, anō reira, kia mihi atu rā kia tātou, kia inoi rā tātou. Kia tau ngā manaakitanga ki runi a tātou katoa. E wā hauko, ko kachira tā mātou hui i tēnei wā, e kōrero anō, kei roto nā i te whakatauki, e ki te mātou i rune i te pouaka nei, nō reira, wai hora we rā kore, kia kore rā e ngaro, kei roto nā o mātou manawa i tēnei wā, e noho mai ana we nā kōrero a tā mātou nei, whaia nei, e tukuna mai mui a mātou. Reira kia tau ngā manaakitanga ki runi a rātou e noho mai rā i roto i te waipuke i tēnei wā. Ko patua rā rātou i te huri pari i tēnei wā. Engari, ko koe rā tērā e hoa e wakahiki ake a rātou. O rātou wairu, o rātou mauri i tēnei wā. Kia noho haumaru rā a tātou katoa. Ahakoa ki konaki ke mātou kei reira rātou. Engari, ka noho haumaru katoa mātou katoa. Ake. Amen. Kia ora tātou. Ai. Talia Morrison. Ai. Te kawa, they taken her mate, the bike people are Talia Morrison.
And nā pō e